Now, here's a story that's a little troubling, and I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it, but, it leads to, let us say, conspiracy theories. I mean, even if you're not into conspiracy theories, everyone says, I'm not into it, but everyone's into conspiracy theories. Everyone believes in conspiracy. They just say they don't. But if you look down on my website, I talked about it yesterday for a minute, and I have to go back to it. Here it is. Ex-Reagan and Bush aide killed, dumped in a landfill. It's a very disturbing and frightening story for a couple of reasons. He's a prominent retired Army officer. He's a former Vietnam veteran. He was last seen near a building that includes federal offices, and he's found in a dump in a landfill in Delaware. Ex-Reagan Bush aide is what they call him, but there's much more to that story, isn't there? We don't know the man personally, but the story is right out of a mystery novel. He's a retired Army officer, as I say, and his name was John Parsons Wheeler, and the man had deep connections in the defense establishment. On December 28th, Wheeler, age 66, who was a driving force behind the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, and, by the way, a former senior Pentagon official, is found dead on New Year's Eve in a landfill a few miles from his Newcastle home. Well, let's look into this for a minute. On December 28th, he was scheduled to take an Amtrak train from his consulting job with a defense contractor, MITRE Corporation, outside Washington, to the Wilmington, Delaware stop. 3 days later, his body is found in a dump. Well, what is that all about? I don't know, but if you were writing a mystery novel, how would you put the pieces together in this one? This is no lightweight guy. From 05 to 08, Wheeler was a special assistant to the Secretary of the Air Force, and he helped create the Air Force Cyber Command. In addition to helping launch MADD and leading the organization that built the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, Wheeler worked for the SEC on investigations of illegal insider trading and for the Pentagon on cutting-edge issues. Let's pause right there. If you were in the FBI and you were assigned the murder, the homicide, which they're calling it now, of Mr. Wheeler, and you learned the facts I have already given you on the Savage Nation, where would you start your investigation? So let's repeat some of them. From 05 to 08, Mr. Wheeler was a special assistant to the Secretary of the Air Force, and he helped create the Air Force Cyber Command. Okay? That's number one. He also worked for the SEC on investigations of illegal insider trading. He also worked at the Pentagon on cutting-edge issues. We don't know what they are. This was not a lightweight guy. He was a graduate of Harvard Business School, a graduate of Yale Law School, a graduate of West Point. He created a Vietnam Veterans Job Program for the administration of Reagan and the Earth Conservation Corps for at-risk use for the administration of President George H.W. Bush. So what do you think happened here? He is a tough guy, a Vietnam veteran. The man is a graduate of, as I say, of West Point, served in Vietnam, worked in the Pentagon producing and analyzing nuclear war games, right? What else did he do? And after he leaves the Army, he has all sorts of high consulting positionships. So what actually happened? If you were a mystery writer, how would you write this story? Now, what's interesting to me is that the newspapers are putting out a story that he was at odds with a neighbor. And that, to me, is kind of bad journalism, okay? He and his wife were at odds with a couple that were building a home across from his 3-story red brick duplex in a historic part of Newcastle, Delaware. They claimed that the new home was too large for the location, would block his views, and they filed a lawsuit against the neighbor. So what are we supposed to believe? That the neighbor had him whacked over a, let's say, a land dispute? Over rather a zoning dispute? I don't believe that that is the real story here. I think there's something else to this story. I don't think it has anything to do with the neighbors, by the way. If it was me, I'll tell you what, why don't you be me for a minute? If you were Michael Savage, where would you begin your investigation, having heard what you've already heard on the ex-Pentagon official found in a dumpster? The phone number is 1-800-449-8255. I'll be right back.
Savage.
It is the Savage Nation. Look, I know most of you haven't even read of this story. I don't know why, but it's a big deal. He is an ex-Pentagon official found in a landfill, in other words, a garbage dump, on New Year's Eve. This is not an ordinary murder. This is a homicide, according to the FBI. Now, exactly who could have killed him is certainly not anything we can know, but at this early stage, we, the American people, can speculate, make believe you're an FBI officer, and you are assigned the case of John Parsons Wheeler. And they're throwing mud in our eye, by the way. The newspaper's saying he was involved in a land dispute with a neighbor. Nonsense. In my opinion, I don't think that has anything to do with the slaying. Now, how would I know what it was to do? Well, let's put two and two together, because this just came out. This just came out, and it's very important that we not make the connection, but we note the interest, okay? Where was he last seen before he was found dead on New Year's Eve in a landfill a few miles from his Newcastle, Delaware home? Okay? Well, on December 28th, Wheeler, age 66, was scheduled to take an Amtrak train from his consulting job with a defense contractor, MITRE Corporation, M-I-T-E-R, outside Washington to the Wilmington, Delaware stop. 3 days later, his body is found in a landfill. Okay, we said that. But the police announced that he had been spotted about 3 p.m. This just came out today. About 3 p.m. on December 30th, he was spotted near 10th and Orange Streets in Wilmington, a block that includes the offices of the U.S. Attorney and Justice Department. Now, that's very intriguing. The police statement did not say how he was spotted or if he was traveling with anyone. Police are refusing to comment beyond that. Police have ruled the case a homicide. But let's go back to where he was last seen. 3 p.m., December 30th, he's seen near 10th and Orange Streets in Wilmington, Delaware, a block that includes the offices of the U.S. Attorney and the Justice Department. Now, this is a big guy, upstanding citizen. Obviously, he's connected deeply into the defense establishment and the government. And to me, if let's say he was seen outside the office of the U.S. Attorney and Justice Department, well, the first place you begin the investigation is at the U.S. Attorney's office and the Justice Department, and you inquire if he was a witness in any ongoing investigation. You look at the logbook. You look at the videotape of that building. Did he enter that building? Well, then, if he entered the building, he was in there for a reason. If he's in there for a reason and suddenly there's no evidence that he spoke to anybody, you've got a massive cover-up inside the the U.S. Attorney's office and inside the Justice Department, and that's where you begin. Now, whether that will ever lead you to the murderer, I doubt it. But you're certainly going to start turning over rocks that are going to release an awful lot of snakes. That's all I can say. The rest of it is going to be pure and unadulterated speculation, and I don't know that we should even indulge this, but it's intriguing to me for a couple of reasons. When I see a man of this stature, a guy who's a Vietnam veteran, combat veteran, by the way, not a faker like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, combat veteran, West Point graduate, Yale Law School, Harvard Business School. Something's going on here. Something is going on here. And what it is, I don't know. It's a whole story, you know. I've been contracted by St. Martin's to write a couple of thrillers, they call them. I'm actually working on one right now. And what is a thriller? This story has all the elements of one of these thrillers. Unfortunately, it's a real man, and a really fine man, apparently, who was killed in a horrible way and thrown into a garbage dump. Now, those of you who are into, let us say, this side of things, the dark side of things, there are people assassinated in this country every day of the week for various reasons, public and private. Let's not hide ourselves from the truth and the ugly truth of the human being. But when a man is assassinated and thrown into a garbage dump, it's a message. That's number two. In other words, they could have knocked him off and then removed the body and never find the body. They could have killed him and left him in the street. But they didn't. Whoever did this to him knocked him off and threw him into a dumpster so that he'd wind up in a garbage dump. So there was a message being sent to, to some individuals, and God only knows what that message is unless you're in that world. I don't know what it means. But again, let's play detective. And I'm going to open it up at Michael Savage, 1-800-449-8255. Let's start in Virginia Beach. Charles, what's your theory on this murder?
Michael, this guy was up to his neck in the recent virus that was sent to Iran to incapacitate the centrifuges, and they took him out.
Well, wait a minute. You're saying he was involved with the Stuxnet virus?
Hey, he was a cyber guy. He knew it inside and out.
Charles, wait. How do you know that he was involved with the Stuxnet virus?
Look at his background.
Well, can we check this on one of the sites where it will say it says he was involved in cyber warfare? Okay, I acknowledge that. But beyond that, do you have any leads here on whether he was involved in Stuxnet?
I'm definitely speculating on this one, Michael, and can't wait to read your book.
Oh, well, as I say, it's a human being and a pretty good one. He's a real loss to America. The fact of the matter is something's wrong here. And it came right after the signing of the START Treaty. Charles, you want to go with me on this one?
I'll go with you there.
Okay, let me go backwards. After serving in Vietnam in the military, he worked at the Pentagon producing and analyzing nuclear war games. And according to an author, Wheeler wrote a study that played a role in President Nixon's 1969 decision to renounce biological weapons, right? So he was sort of after the war, he became somewhat of a pacifist in a way. That's interesting unto itself.
Well,
but where does that lead you in your thinking?
Well, I really don't see him as a pacifist. I would say that he didn't like what the START Treaty was doing, and he could have been somebody to be the fly on the ointment concerning that.
All right, there you go. There you go. Now we're getting warm, in my opinion. START Treaty is signed. Top Pentagon guy like him is found dead, thrown in a garbage dump.
Russians haven't ratified it yet.
No, but they got everything they want. Now they want more. That's how the Russians work. They have a patsy in the White House and a patsy in the Republican Party, so they got everything they want, so why should they now sign it? Now they ask for more.
The first big rock to be turned over on this administration, Michael.
You really think that this administration is going to even investigate this?
Well, I don't know. They need some good Watergate reporters on this one.
Yeah, right. They need real reporters, which unfortunately there are very few left, if any. Most of them are simply, let us say, disseminators of propaganda rather than true reporters. This would take a real 1940s, 1950s era gumshoe reporter who's not going to stop until he gets to the truth. Do you think any of them exist anymore?
Michael, they're too busy trying to investigate a commander of an aircraft carrier.
Oh, my God. I didn't even get to that story. The commander of an aircraft carrier who makes a comic video that dares criticize certain sensitive individuals, and he's relieved of command in a time of war when there are only 9 aircraft carriers to begin with? What an administration, huh?
Savage.
We are, as the American people are wont to do, discussing a homicide in Delaware of a top consultant to the Pentagon, Vietnam veteran, Harvard business graduate, Yale Law School. All very important to this because this is not an ordinary Joe just whacked by a bum in the street, which would be bad enough. This was an assassination, pure and simple, but what's disturbing at this time is that the FBI is not involved in the investigation other than offering so-called technical assistance. Now, why would the FBI take such a hands-off approach to the assassination of a former special assistant to the Secretary of the Air Force? What do you mean only technical assistance? This is an outrage. The FBI certainly has the resources, and the Department of Homeland Security is over in the Middle East worrying about their problems, and this is going on in my country? Now, let's look at the man himself, 66-year-old John P. Wheeler of Newcastle. The man was deeply involved in Air Force Cyber Command and the Air Force Cyber Command. And if you look at his bio, and I've just found this through a friend, He was a distinguished individual. He exceptionally meritorious service to the U.S. as Special Assistant. He won awards. But what does it have to do with you? Listen to this one. Here's a quote now. Grasping the growing vulnerability of our weapon systems to cyber intrusions, Wheeler worked tirelessly to drive the activation of Air Force Cyber Command. His visionary efforts were instrumental in the creation of the Cyber Research Center at the Air Force Institute of Technology. The first two graduates of the United States Air Force Academy to enter the Air Force Institute of Technology Cyber Masters Program, did you hear this one? The stand-up of the Air Force Cyber School, and an increased emphasis on Air Force recruitment efforts for officers and enlisted for cyber careers. That's very interesting. There's more. Very interesting. He helped formulate advice on initiatives such as joint basing, recapitalization, ROVER precision strike data for Army and Marine troops, acquisition, and a myriad of legislative initiatives facing the Air Force. Well, does that give us a hint? I don't know what it means.